Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of MovieKombat. It's another episode. Welcome back. We're back for another week.
Yes.
To talk about the movie of the week is Alien. Yes, Alien.
Yeah, no covenants, no plurals, just alien.
Yeah. For some reason, I'm having trouble with my sound here. All right, but anyway, I can hear again. So, we are talking about Alien. This is, my name is Ryan A. Moore, but joining me is...
Hey, it's Josh.
And, yeah, what we are doing for the first season of MovieKombat is we are watching the Predator and Alien movies, all in chronological order through its timeline. Now, weirdly enough, I'm going to go into this in more depth when we get into the review, but I think that may have affected how I watched this movie. More to come on that. So anyway,
Yeah, I can see maybe some points that you might be able to make like at some point. Yeah. Because I was kind of thinking the same thing when I was initially watching it. I was like, oh yeah, this movie's like the way I view certain things and the way it looks at certain points.
yeah, it's very interesting. So anyway, we're going to get into that. The way we do this is we go through a thing called the walkthrough. We walk through the whole movie. We talk about some of the points that we liked, some of the things that we didn't like, and then we move on to some fun facts and trivia and things like that over on our IMDb corner. But let us get into it for Alien. Do you know when this movie came out?
79, I think.
Okay. I'm not looking it up right now. I'm trying to get to my notes here.
Yeah, I think it's 79 because it came after Star Wars.
Okay. So anyway, we have something very special. We get an old Fox logo because now.
Oh yeah, that's
the reason
right.
why
I
wanted to bring this up now is now Disney owns Fox, and they own Alien.
Oh yeah.
So that's gonna be interesting. See if we can get some more Alien movies coming.
I'm really hoping they're going to do something like what they did with Miramax, where essentially they'll just kind of leave Fox as itself, and then they'll still release.
Well, I think Fox is getting, like, they just bought a whole bunch of their properties. I don't know. I don't want to pull that out of my butt, but I think that's what happened. So like 90% of, like 99% of the company is now Disney, while the other stuff is still going to be Fox. Or something like that.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's just their entertainment division or something, which is most of Fox.
Yeah. We got in the fade-in font, which was way slower than Alien Covenant, and it had more letters, so which was funny to see that. So it just fades in with the alien stuff. We get introduced to the spaceship. Do you know what this spaceship's name is?
Yeah, that's the Nostromo.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's a tow vehicle, Nostromo, crew 7, cargo 20 million tons of mineral ore. Can you not hear me?
It was going off a little bit there.
Oh, well, now I can't. Hold on. I can't see.
Oh, okay. I see what was going on there.
20 million tons of mineral ore, and it's on its way back to Earth.
Yes. So this I wrote that down, too, because here's the thing. First time we're getting a ship flying to Earth, not away from Earth, because all of our ships have been flying away in the Alien series, and now we're getting one that's going back. We get the Star Wars ship pan of like the same thing that the Star Destroyer got. So I was like, oh, that's odd that we're seeing this in this movie. And then we get a whole bunch of pan shots. Ridley Scott absolutely loved the pan shot in this movie. You're getting pan shot in down the hallways, pan shots in like the cafeteria area where you see a box and it kind of shakes and you're like, what's in the box? We'll find out later. And then it starts getting pan shots and a whole bunch of different that. And then all of a sudden the computers start turning on.
Yeah.
And I noticed that everything runs on DOS.
Yeah, it is really strange because obviously since this movie, technically speaking, is the very first of all of these movies, like by our standards of time, not like the movie timeline. like you can tell how dated the technology is, and it's a little distracting, but I do kind of like the feel of it because it's all like
it makes this like and it like loads
sounds
in
like
stuff.
what's those printers called? The DOS matrix printers or dot matrix?
I don't know.
Yeah, the ones with the paper that you tear off the sides. I think it's a dot matrix.
Oh yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. Yep. So everyone wakes up in these like flower sleep pods. Yeah. Everything like folds up, and then the captain wakes up and just like starts wandering about, and everyone's. I said breakfast time, coffee and cereal, and smoking because there was a lot of smoking that was happening in this movie too.
I marked that it was a little over 5 minutes until the first dialogue, which was them just kind of bantering at the table. Yeah, because it was all just panning shots, really quiet, technology, all that kind of stuff, lights. But you don't hear a single word until they're actually awake. And even when they wake up, it takes Kane, which is one of the characters. He's the first. He's the first one to wake up out of the group. But yeah, once they all wake up, they're all like hanging out, eating breakfast and stuff, and then
the captain eventually says, "I'm going to go talk to Mother." At which we do know who Mother is, so we actually get a character that is from the past movie.
Yep.
But Mother doesn't talk.
Did we mention what time? So compared to Covenant, so Covenant took place in, what does it say, 2102?
Yeah, it actually didn't say in the movie, I don't think, but it says, yes, we have written down it takes place during 2102. So, which is 20 years.
So this is 2122. Yeah.
Well, Alien Covenant took place in 2106, and Alien takes place in 2122.
Wait,
so this is 20 years.
Isn't this the score?
That's the score. The 6 is a score.
Yeah.
We gave it a 6.
So 2102.
Yes.
2122.
Yes. Usually when you add 20 to 20.
I thought you said something about a 6. So
no, you kept pointing at the 6, and then I explained it to you.
I wasn't pointing at the 6. I was pointing at the 2102. The 6 just happened to be there. I didn't even notice it.
Yeah, I didn't say anything about it until you were like, "Then what is this?" And then I said it's a 6.
No, I wasn't even talking about that.
Okay. I didn't mention it until you said it.
Oh yeah, I wasn't even talking about the 6. So
yeah. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So we get. So this movie takes place 20 years after Alien Covenant, which is interesting because then we start to figure out some other stuff that sort of talks about the Alien Covenant, but they don't imply a lot of that they know stuff.
Yeah, like I will say, just to kind of break the fourth wall of the movie, that if there is ever a sequel to Alien Covenant, it is, rumor has it, supposed to take place in between this and this movie and Covenant, and it's supposed to explain some of the events that happen in this film, or like lead up to the events that happen in this movie. So I just wanted to put that out there, but we haven't gotten any confirmation about a new sequel or anything like that as far as a Covenant sequel so far.
Yeah, because there's a lot that is kind of innuendo to what happened in Covenant, which we'll get into a little bit later. I did say the Foley work in this movie is amazing. I love the like click, click, click sounds of people walking, and then all this. And then my favorite sound effect, because I wrote this down, was when the captain walked in to talk with Mother, and he like pulls out a thing, and then he like this little drive, and then he shoves it into like a hole, and it clicks in. It goes. And then it like he closes it and pushes a button that makes a click sound, and then he walks in.
Good classic sound effects. in this movie.
There's a lot of good Foley work in this movie.
Before we get too far, I just want to introduce the crew, because I just want to say that in this crew is my favorite female, and I don't care what anybody says, superhero, because to me she's a superhero, and that would be Ellen Ripley. Because she's the most badass.
Yeah, but Ripley doesn't even talk until like way later in the movie.
This is her origin story, man.
Sure, yeah.
But I just want to say that, yeah, she's like the coolest chick ever. And then you've got Dallas, who's the captain. Parker and Brett, who are basically the repair crew, like they're the engineers or whatever. And Parker, he's this like big burly black dude who's always talking about getting paid, and I love his character. He's always like, now let's talk about our bonuses. You know, and he's like,
does everyone get a share just like I do?
He's always talking about money.
Y'all get shares. We did a lot of the grunt work too.
Yeah. And then there's Kane, who's the XO. He's like the second in charge after Dallas, because Ripley's third in command. Ash, who's the science officer, and then Lambert is the pilot.
Yes.
And
only a crew of 7.
Yeah, it's a really small crew. Oh, and Jonesy the cat.
Yeah. Well, wow, spoilers.
Well, no, he's there at the breakfast.
In the very beginning?
Yeah, he's at the breakfast table
okay.
with them. They let him out like after they wake up.
So yeah, when the captain's in this like dome room full of like lights, he starts talking with Mother through DOS commands.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. And then I made a what was it? Nostromo is the ship.
Yeah.
I said it looked like a castle.
It does kind of, yeah. It looks like
Howl's Moving Castle.
4 towers, and it's got these big domes underneath of it.
Yeah, I was like, there's only 7 people on this ship?
Yeah.
It's a huge ship.
I'm curious if how the ship works is if each of those towers holds like certain like 5 million tons of mineral ore, right? And then
because they're carrying 20 million.
Yeah.
20 million tons of mineral ore returning to Earth.
Yeah, and so I'm curious if each one holds like maybe about 5, and then they just have like a few small passages through each one so they can monitor stuff.
Maybe.
But the main portion of the ship is.
But I was like, this
right
ship is bigger than the
front.
Covenant. It was. That's what was weird about it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was just a huge like. Well, and it's weird too because I'm curious if, like, because it said it was a towing vessel, so it's like part of their ship isn't even that big part. Like the little ship that they fly down, I think, into, like, well, you'll see that later, or we'll talk about that later, but like part of the ship detaches. I think that's their main ship.
Got it.
And then there's like a shuttle also, which does have a name, but they don't say it in the movie. I just happen to be looking up some of the facts or whatever. But
so when they're flying, they try to find out why they were waking up. That's why the captain went to go talk with Mother.
Yeah.
And the captain comes back and he's like, they're trying to fly and figure out and try to connect with Earth, and Sigourney Weaver calls Antarctica traffic control.
Yeah.
I just thought it was funny that she was calling Antarctica, because I guess if there was ever a place to have like traffic control, why not put it on the bottom of the planet that's neutrally owned?
Yeah,
that no one owns it. No country is ever to claim it. So why not put it in Antarctica? I just thought it was kind of cool. How do you say Antarctica?
Oh, yeah, this whole thing. I never really thought about it.
You say Antarctica and we're moving on.
But I was because now when I think about it, I don't know if I'm going to say Antarctica.
See, I was going to ask you, but I was like,
Antarctica.
This is a stupid conversation anyway. Yeah. Gus is wrong. We're moving on. All right, so
I do see his point, though.
They say that they're only halfway through the travel, and they seem very not happy about that.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, because this transmissions, it's a 12-second ping that just keeps repeating over and over again.
Yeah, they notice that they have an unknown transmission, which is why Mother woke them up.
Yeah, and they don't know what it is. But then one of my favorite arguments in the movie. So Parker's like, I say we just keep going. We just take the stuff back to Earth. We don't know what it is. And then Ash, being the fucking guy that he is, he's all like, oh, well, we're obligated to check it out, because it's in our contract. And then he's like, fuck that, it's on my contract. So then he tells Parker about how if he doesn't do it, then he'll forfeit his shares. And he's like, well, I guess we're going down to the planet then.
Yeah.
He's all like, yeah, I'm ready to go. It made me laugh because, like, I just love his character because all he's concerned about is how many shares he gets. And we don't even know what their credit, like, money is. Like, they never say.
Yeah, but I'm assuming 20 million tons of ore that's not on the planet probably is worth a lot of money. Anyway, so the small ship leaves. There's only a crew of 3 that's leaving to go check out the. Is it only 3?
Yeah, it's Lambert, Dallas, and Kane.
Yeah, and so they leave to go and check out the ping that's on this planet. Right? They're on a planet.
Yeah, so it's a planetoid. I guess.
Planetoid.
Yeah, is what they specifically say. I don't know what the difference between that and a planet would be. I guess that would be a dwarf planet, maybe at this point. Maybe I guess it's round and it's got somewhat of an atmosphere or something. It's not breathable, but But yeah, they basically are flying down to this like sort of proto planet because Ash says when he's reading the things, he's like, oh, it's a bit primordial, and so it's, I guess, like kind of in the throes of making an actual world.
Yeah. So as I was we got to this point, I wrote a little note saying this is a slow moving beginning in this movie.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing. There are times in this movie that it is so freaking slow. And especially, this is why I think watching it in this timeline has hurt it. Because I think if we would have started with Alien and we had never seen a xenomorph ever, I think this is what we would have liked. I would have liked this movie a lot more. And I don't want to say that's effective. Yeah, I don't want to say like, you don't jump ahead of me because I haven't given you my score yet. But the thing is like, it's kind of like I was explaining this to somebody that was asking me about like, oh, well, how did you like it? How did you like Alien? And the thing is like with Alien, I feel that these movies, and again, I haven't seen 2 and 3, so I don't know. But I think that these movies you can't watch them before Prometheus and Covenant. And it's kind of like Star Wars, where it's like you ruin the whole saga for someone that has never seen these movies before if you watch episodes 1, 2, and 3 before 4, 5, and 6.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you watch 1, 2, and 3, and then when Vader goes, "No, Luke, I am your father," and he's like, "No, that's impossible," you're sitting there on the couch going, "Yeah, I already fucking know." Because, like, I've already seen you. Yeah. I've seen you go from a pod racing dweeb all the way to the most vicious person in the whole galaxy. And now they added, like, the whole, like, Rogue One stuff. So now he's even more, like, known. So with that, you just, like, ruin it. I think that these movies cause that effect in a different way, but have that kind of movement of how fast Ridley Scott came back, and he's like, oh, Prometheus is going to tell a story. It's a little bit slow moving, but it's more modern to how like we're able to watch 21st century movies. And then when especially I was talking about Prometheus was the slower one. And then Covenant comes out, and it's like all action. You see an alien jumping on fucking shit, and you're like, oh, okay. And then he's like killing people. People are vomiting up like aliens and xenomorphs, and you're like, oh my God, I don't know what's happening. Like, to me, that is so different from this movie.
Oh, for sure.
This movie is not that at all.
This movie's a very slow-moving suspense.
Yeah, it's definitely more of that. If you had never seen them, like if we had never seen Alien vs. Predator and we had never seen Prometheus and we never saw Covenant, I think we would have looked at for me, I keep saying we, I don't know why, but I think I would have looked at this a lot differently because we're getting introduced to a character. And that's what's happening in this movie. That was what the whole intention of this movie was. Right. The whole advertisements for this was literally black billboards that said, like, in space, no one can hear you scream. Yeah. Like, those taglines were just on black billboards, and it had the date of when the movie was coming out. Like, no one knew what the movie was about, and then that's why, like, this movie has such a slow crawl, because everyone's anticipating, like, what is this movie?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? They're in space? Okay, I see what's going on. Like, that's how this whole thing moves.
This movie is in a completely different genre. It's like, it's still sci-fi, but out of all of them, this one's a sci-fi horror, as opposed to all the rest being like sci-fi action. To me, this, like, I made reference to The Thing in AVP because the setting of it was just very ironic of how the whaling station looked like that. But but this movie definitely reminds me of The Thing, like where it's just slow crawl to introduce a person. It's like it's not like how Predator is. Like Predator is in the shit like pretty fast. Like, you're knowing what's going on. You know that there's something watching, like that's happening. Mm-hmm. In this movie, it doesn't have that. It is like not happening until way later in the movie because they want you to get that, oh, okay, I'm relaxed, and then when shit goes sideways, then you're totally into it. Yeah.
But anyway, I just had that note, so that's a little bit preview to the review here. I said they land really slow just to crash anyway.
Yeah, no kidding.
So yeah. I think the whole crew goes with them, right? Don't the whole crew goes on this little ship?
Yeah, the whole crew's in the ship.
Yeah, but 3 of them leave the little ship to go.
They're
look
essentially
for stuff.
The landing party explorer group, and that's Dallas, Lambert, and Kane. Because Kane essentially volunteers first because he's like, oh, and Kane's played by John Hurt, great actor. There's a bunch of actors in this movie that are like famous from other movies. Sigourney Weaver was a new face on the scene though, and then Tom Skerritt, who plays Dallas, he was pretty famous. He'd been in a few movies. The dude, I can't remember the dude who played Brett. I forget his name, but he's pretty famous. He's in a couple movies, and a couple of the other people. They're all famous actors from back in the day. Anyway, Kane volunteers to go, and then Dallas is like, "Oh, well, I wouldn't have expected anything less, so I'm going with you." And then Lambert, "You're coming too," and Lambert's like, "Oh, great, yippee," because Lambert is she's basically the coward of the group. Like, she wants to get out of there. She's afraid, that something bad's going to happen. She just wants to go home, And I mean, it's perfectly understandable. I wouldn't want to land on an alien planet, know. And even Parker at some point, he's like, "Dude, let's just get out of here. Like, we've touched down, we've taken a look, let's go,"
So when they leave the ship, it is windy as shit.
Yeah.
Like, it is just like like it's just blowing, and they're like trying to get out, and they're like, you can see in their spacesuits, it's just like this gust of wind. Like, yeah, it was pretty funny.
Using 1979's GoPro technology. Which
but don't hold on, I got something to say about that. But before that, we see Ash get in this moving chair. That's like the most ridiculous thing, because he's literally just like, you see that he just gets slid across these metal bars that I can only assume were just reusable stuff from the cameras, that they're like, "Hey, we're already using this, we might as well add it into the movie." So I wrote 3 people go to look outside. And so Ripley goes down to start talking with the mechanics about like what's going on, like how fast can and as she's talking, they're like turning the nozzle of steam so they couldn't hear what she had to say, and then she just walks off, and then he goes he's done. Oh man, that was kind of funny.
I thought that was a good scene.
I wrote engine. Oh, yes. So we, as the 3 crew are walking around, this is at the 24-minute mark. They look out up on this hill, and there's a spaceship sitting on this hill. What is this spaceship we're seeing here?
Well, it looks like a familiar vessel.
Yeah.
It's shaped kind of odd. It's got a big old hammer-looking thing on one side and kind of a weird pointy thing on the other, because it's an engineer vessel.
Yeah,
it looks exactly like the spaceship from Covenant and from Prometheus.
Yeah, which is kind of cool, because I was like, man, Ridley Scott actually like used stuff in this movie, because this is something that makes it seem like it's a good thing of how if you watch them in order, because this is one of those things where it's like, man, it actually does almost feel like a sequel.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh yeah, this is happening in this time frame and only 20 years later, and you're seeing all this stuff. So I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, and there's some lines in this movie later on that I'll talk about when we get to that part, but it kind of reminded me of some stuff that we've seen already in previous movies.
So yes, you were mentioning a POV. I said POV with no GoPro makes me wish there was no POV.
Yeah.
I was like, I'd rather have the GoPros that have no POV than having these VHS tapes.
Dude, you could totally make a rhyme out of that. No POV with no GoPro is a no-go, bro.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
But yeah, it was funny how there was like tracking and stuff, and then like every time they were trying to talk, it was just
bad.
like.
Well, not only that, like the camera just made me want to throw up. I just kept moving around all over the place. I'm like, oh.
And in the future, spaceships are embedded with CCTV monitors. Is that what they're called? CCTV? The old boxy.
Closed captioning. Closed circuit.
Yeah. It's those. Yeah, the old ones that are like bubbly and like. They look like they're from the 70s. Yeah. It's great because everything's in black and white and everything. I will say it does add a little bit of charm to this movie, just seeing, because this is how I viewed it. I understand that the movie was made in the 70s, and at that point in time, that was probably state of the art, cutting edge looking. It's like, oh, cool, that totally could be what a spaceship looks like. But I like to think that spaceship was made using older technology, quote unquote, like from, I don't know, say like the early millennium of 2000, early 21st century. And that's kind of like what spaceships, they do still look kind of rustic comparatively to technology nowadays, because they're still running with like 60s tech. And so I would like to imagine that in the latter half of the 21st century, they developed a little bit more modern stuff, but then they still like outfitted this machine with like retro technology because it's just a company vehicle. It's kind of like bare bones minimum, you know.
Yeah,
Whereas
because like when you think about it, like when you're working in an industrial type of thing, you're still running on
you look at like
old programming.
Yeah, like look at a computer at a desk job as opposed to like your home computer. You know, it's like light years difference.
Yeah.
So
because it only needs to do like 4 or 5 things.
Exactly. So that's kind of how I suspend my disbelief on that. Like I like to look at it as like, oh yeah, this is just an old company ship that they're using to basically haul mineral ore, and it's just kind of run down and old, you know.
So the 3 crew members enter the engineer's ship.
Yes.
And they see a familiar person sitting in a giant thing. An engineer pilot is in his little gunner seat, which is just the navigation seat, but it just looks like a giant gun.
You want to hear something kind of funny about this? So before Prometheus and before the idea of engineers, this character did have a name unofficially, and they called him the Space Jockey. Yeah. That was before, I guess, any of that backstory came to play. But I just always liked the idea of the name being the Space Jockey. I thought it was cool.
Yeah. They looks like he. Oh yeah. So they mentioned that he looks like he exploded from the inside of the engineer.
Been dead for a while. He's fossilized, ribs bent outward.
And then I wrote this down at the very beginning of the movie. Again, I have never seen this. But it says Ash. I said Ash really sounds odd after Ripley tries to tell him that Mother found that the signal is a warning, and not a signal of help.
Yeah.
And Ash gave this like weird tone, and you're kind of like, why do you sound like that? And then he just kind of goes about, and you're like, okay, all right.
Yeah, because it's just a quick scene. Like Kane finds a hole while they're in the ship, and then it cuts to Ash and Ripley. Ripley's deciphering the signal while they're just sitting there doing nothing, and essentially she's like, "Oh yeah, it's like kind of partly decoded, says something about a warning." And then he had said, he was like, "How are you sure it's a warning?" And then she's like, "Well, I'm gonna go out after him." And he's like, "Well, it's no use. Like, why would you go out with them? By the time you get there, they'll probably be on their way back, and they'll probably know if it's a warning or not, and they'll be on their way back by then." And she's like, "Huh, like that's kind of weird."
Yeah. Yeah, Ripley knows what's up. Anyway, so 32 minutes in, the crew walks into a room and they see these giant eggs sitting around. They're not as big as they were in Alien Covenant, though.
Yeah,
but they're big.
Yeah,
they're big suckers.
Smaller.
Yeah,
I forget what they were called. Ovopods, I think, is what they were called. Like the name or whatever. I can't remember exactly. But the facehugger eggs, basically.
Yeah. Speaking
Kane
of facehugger eggs.
Yeah, Kane specifically goes down into this thing.
Take a look.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty obvious what's going to happen here, I think.
Yeah. Well, now that we've seen the other movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a layer of mist covering the eggs, and then the guy he goes, there seems to be mist covering the eggs, and then he slips, and I'm like, oh my god, like why is that?
Did you notice that when he was looking at the eggs there was black goo on them?
Yeah, I noticed there was some movement on the eggs, and then when he shined the light through, he had there's also movement in there too. But yes, I did notice that.
So and it's like I never noticed the black goo before, but after watching this and being like, dude, was like, did he have the idea of the black goo in his head this entire time? You know, like.
Well, I don't know if he had it this entire time, but I think when he watched them back again, he's like, well, I got to take some elements here.
Yeah, that's
to
possible,
like make Covenant and Prometheus somewhat relevant on why they're alien movies.
Yeah.
It opens and it jumps.
Yeah.
And just takes over his sucking face.
Yeah, and it makes a loud screech. Like it's a pretty good jump scare. You know, I mean, obviously I've seen it before, so I knew it was coming. But it's one of those ones where, like, if it's your first time watching, you know, it'll get you. I think.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah.
Well, and this is also in the context of, like you were saying, if you hadn't seen the previous movies, you know.
The 3 return, but 2 are walking. I made note of that.
Yeah.
The captain yells at Ripley to tell them that to like open the door.
Yeah.
But then Ripley says, no, because that's against quarantine.
Yeah.
And
she's being smart.
Yeah. They said would say to not let them in. Oh yeah, quarantine would say not to let them in. And then Ash is like, we gotta let them in. And then she's like, no, we are told to not do this.
Yeah.
You can leave his ass outside, and then you two can come in. And then it's pretty much the same situation that happened in Alien Covenant, or in Prometheus, except they let him in.
Right. Yeah.
Because Ash is an asshole, and so it just lets him in. And
he disobeys Ripley, who at this point in time is in charge while being on the ship because she was third in command. Dallas and Kane were off the ship, so she's.
Yeah, so they take him into the medic bay, and the face hugger is holding on tight.
Yeah.
And then Parker, I think that's his name. He says like, "How come you don't freeze him?" I'm like, yeah, why don't you freeze him? Like, why?
Parker
why
makes a lot of sense a lot of the time.
Why is that not happening right now? Because even if you were so psycho crazy like somebody is in this movie, why wouldn't you do that so you can preserve the embryo? I don't know, just weird.
Yeah.
Scan shows that the hugger is feeding on his oxygen. Is what Ash says. I don't know if that's a damn lie, but
no, it was giving him oxygen.
Feeding him oxygen. I did write that weird. Okay, I wrote that right because I was looking at it. I'm like, what does that even mean? I write quick notes sometimes, and because I'm like typing, so I don't know if I actually said. So what I actually wrote was scan shows that the hugger is feeding him oxygen.
Yeah, because
I didn't know if it was feeding on, and then as I read it, I was like, okay.
Yeah, because Parker, he's like, how's he even breathing? You know, because it's like attached to his face, and then they do an X-ray real quick, and they see that it's like giving him oxygen, and I'm not sure if they see the thing go. They said something about his throat, like they saw the thing go down his throat, but they didn't know what it was doing in particular, and then they said about the oxygen stuff, so I think they just kind of inferred that that's what that was doing.
Yeah, and then Ash is just sending off a lot of mixed signals here.
Mm-hmm.
He starts going, hold on, let's not be too quick about removing it.
Yeah.
And because captain's like, no, we're going to remove it. And then Ash is like, whoa, hold on a second. And then he's like, I'll take the repercussions. Just get it off.
Yeah, because Ash says it might kill him if they try to take it off.
Yeah, so Ash cuts the acid, and the blood goes through 2 floors. And they mention that it's molecular acid.
Yeah.
Is the blood. I was like, oh, okay. So now we actually got like a name to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of like scientific terms, like because they like do some studying, you know, and it's kind of nice.
Well, these people are smarter.
Yeah.
These are actual scientists that are scientists, not scientists that are sent to a planet to start a whole new Earth.
Right.
Like
yeah.
they're not
colonists.
Yeah, they're not in the knowledge base of that. They're just like they're smart people. They're just that's not their expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So these are engineers that should know if shit goes sideways. They need to know what acid is.
Yeah.
So they left him in the medic bay with the hugger. I said long time for turning because this is a long ass time. Because in AVP. That shit happened in like, I don't know, like 5-10 minutes. Yeah, this happens like what seems to be like hours.
Well, yeah, because they said specifically the dude, it would take 25 hours. Well, the one guy said 17, but then the other, Parker, was like, oh, well, 25. And so they said it would take about a day to repair the ship completely, enough to where they can take off. And he has the face hugger on the entire time they're on the planet. So it's been at least 1 day before they take off, and he still even has the face hugger on like right before that.
Ripley is not happy with Ash.
No.
Because she thinks that he may have jeopardized the mission.
Yeah.
And then, actually, I'm sorry, he says that to her too. He says, maybe I've jeopardized the mission, Ash. And because she was getting on him about like, hey, why didn't you fucking have my back? Like, you're supposed to be listening to me, not to them. They're not in charge. You need to listen to me. And then they're in charge now again. So
yeah, she walked in on him doing some late night studying. He was like studying the face hugger, its molecular contents, because he does mention something about it being silicone, and it's like constantly rejuvenating the outside, so that's why it's able to survive in harsh environments. And then I just want to point out that as she walked away and left, he drank some milk out of a glass.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. The hugger is now unattached to Kane, and they all run back.
Oh, Okay, so this is one thing that I twice they do this twice. And they mention this on like Cinema Sins all the time. Like it's one of those things where uh, Dallas, yeah, what's up, Ash? You need to come and take a look at this. And then he's like, what is it? And he's like, it's just better if you come and take a look.
Yeah, he does say that.
Yeah, he does that the first time when something with the face hugger. I can't remember exactly what. And oh no, it was when the face hugger detaches. And then there's another time later when he does the same thing when we get to it later. And essentially it's the same thing where he's like, it's just better if you come and take a look. And it's like, why? Just tell him.
Yeah.
Like this happens in TV shows all the time too, where it's like, if you would just communicate, things would not go bad.
Well then how do the main characters disappear?
Right.
Dallas is I wrote Dallas as the captain because I was just writing down stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas tips over a cabinet and scares the crap out of you. He didn't scare the crap out of me, but I know that's definitely a jump scare. Because he's like they're all trying to look for the face hugger because it's not on his lap.
Yeah.
So they're like looking around.
And of course it's kind of dark and spooky.
Yeah,
and so
Kane, or I'm sorry, Dallas, which I also noticed, captain's name's Dallas, pilot of the ship in Covenant, Tennessee.
Oh, huh.
So there you go. There's some.
Yeah, there you go.
So anyway, they all start looking, and Dallas walks out of frame left, which is weird because I'm like, who the hell walks out of frame on the left side like that? So I'm like, something's gonna happen, and then all of a sudden, clang, and you're okay. Well, there, and it freaks out Ripley, and she's all mad about it. So she starts looking up, and then all of a sudden, something falls on her.
Yeah, and I love the way it happens too, because it's like first you see a tail dangle a little bit, and then all of a sudden you see this like puppet looking thing just kind of drop onto her, and you can tell she's holding it and going and then she kind of flings it away. But it's such a great scene that like even though you can tell it's like clearly a fake prop, it's great. It's just a really fun scene.
So yeah, the face hugger falls down on Ripley.
Yeah.
And then they start dissecting the hugger.
Yeah, because they do confirm that it's dead. Ash takes a thing and he pokes it, and then it freaks out, and then Dallas is like, "It's still alive," and he's like, "No, it's a reflex action." it's just
like, why? How would you know?
Yeah, he's just like, no, and then so they start studying it, and then Ash is like, "We need to take this back. Like, we need to look at it or whatever." And Ripley's like, "Fuck that, get it off the ship. Like, we don't want this here." And then Dallas is like, well, he's the science officer, so I'm gonna let him make the decision. Then him and Ripley get into an argument about it as Dallas is walking away. She shuts the door on him in the hallway, and she's like, "What do you mean you're gonna let him take it back?" And he's like, "Dude, he knows more about this stuff than I do. I just run the ship." And she's like, "It was attached to our like companion guy or whatever. Like, this is not a good thing. We cannot take this back."
Did you also catch the Dallas talks about like during this conversation? Ripley brings up like, how do you even know you can trust him? And Dallas goes, "Well, he's a science officer," and then gives this backstory about he was assigned to his ship 2 days before the mission happened. I don't know if you caught that.
Oh, I must have missed that.
Yeah,
part
so
of the dialogue.
he was Dallas was running with a science officer for like missions and missions and missions, and then all of a sudden 2 days before they went on this one, he shows up. And I'm like, oh my god, this is the things you got to keep track of.
Yeah, I missed that part.
Yeah, it goes really fast because they're literally just having this conversation like normal. And so getting the ship to take off. Oh yeah, so the ship takes off. The little rover ship takes off, heads back to the thing. And then Ripley finds out, or somebody, I can't remember, I think it was the other girl, finds out that it takes 10 more months to get back to Earth.
Yes.
Kane's awake.
You need to come and take a look at this.
Yeah, exactly.
What is it?
He's awake.
Just come and take a look. It's better if you see for yourself. And then the next scene is Kane like awake. And he's like, dude, he looks like shit.
Yeah. Kane can't remember the eggs, but remembers being smothered.
Yeah, that is kind of weird because so I don't know if this is a continuity error just simply because since this was the first one of all of these movies, if maybe they forgot about this, because I don't think in any of the other movies, anytime anybody gets face hugged, that they forget what happened.
They don't. Well, okay, so let's track back here. In AVP, when they all get face hugged. They're in a group. So when it happens, she wakes up because we see the girl.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and
she just looks around and she doesn't say anything, but she starts freaking out because she sees everyone that has these face huggers, and then all of a sudden it bursts out of her. In AVPR, what happens in AVPR?
They had a couple face huggers in that one.
But do they get in a group?
There's the two bums in the sewer.
That's right.
There's
we don't see their reactions.
Yeah,
so we don't know that.
There's the kid and the father at the beginning.
That's true.
And they see each other like get their chest bursts, but they die like immediately in the movie.
And then in Prometheus, there is no face hugger.
Yeah, it's just that big trilobite.
In Alien Covenant,
it's just the two.
It's the one. Yeah, it's the captain, and he's alone.
Yeah.
And it's the
melty face guy that gets the one stuck on him later on.
Yeah. And we already know that he dies before anyone knows what's going on, so it's whatever. So yeah, I don't think it we don't know of this happening. So as of right now, if they break the continuity, then it will then it starts now. So now we know that if you get face hugged, you don't remember that happening.
Yeah, I guess they never do really mention anything.
Because this is the first time we're actually seeing like casual face huggers coming around.
Yeah, like this is the first time anybody studied them, and then this is the only time, like immediately afterward or while it was happening. Because even in Covenant or whatever, like the captain gets face hugged and then it happens, nobody sees it, and then the one dude gets it on him, but then they cut it off, so they don't actually examine it.
Also, he doesn't say that he has it, so maybe he did forget.
What?
Maybe the burn face guy forgot, because he doesn't mention that, like, oh yeah, I had this thing on my face. Maybe you should check that out. So maybe it does happen.
True.
Because in AVPR we get the like weird guzzling,
like
predalien,
and then,
happening
like,
to everybody. That's
everybody.
Kind of gross.
So it is possible, I guess.
Speaking of eating, everyone eats again.
Yeah.
Everyone goes back to eating. And then all of a sudden, Ash starts. Oh, yeah. So as they're eating, I notice.
Oh, yeah.
Ash is looking at Kane the whole time.
Yeah, he's just staring at him down.
Never looks at anyone else in this whole entire scene. He just watches Kane. And then Kane starts to choke, and then he starts to convulse.
Yeah, they're having a conversation about the food. I just want to point out, because I just love the comedic timing in this, because they're basically Kane's like, the first thing I'm gonna do when I get back home is I'm gonna eat some real food. Then he takes a big old bite of this like weird pasta noodly looking shit. And then
wasn't he in Spaceballs where they make the reference of like
he's
in the diner?
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
yeah, because he's like, oh,
why does this keep happening to me?
Like, not again.
Not again.
And so then Parker he says something about the food, and then Kane starts choking. He's like, come on, baby, the food ain't that bad.
Come on, baby.
Yeah, it was so funny. I couldn't help but laugh.
So yeah, it's 56 minutes in, we get our first chest burster,
yeah.
and then he runs off,
dude.
He just.
And this is a violent chest burst. Like
not as violent as Alien Covenant, but yes, violent nonetheless. Yes,
I think technologically, or technology wise, there we go.
You said it right the first time.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if I said it right.
Yeah.
It sounded wrong in my head, but it obviously you can't do what you can do now. This is like. At this point, I guess it's like a 40-year-old movie, right? Yeah, because the
40th anniversary is this year,
and which was we didn't plan that. And
surprisingly, we did not do that.
So obviously you can't have as like good graphics, CGI, all that kind of stuff. But
we'll get to that.
But
we'll get to that.
Well, and I was gonna say that, but just the violence in John Hurt's performance and the way he reacted to it, it's just so more visceral, I think.
Oh yeah.
It just seems more real to me than the previous movie, because the previous
I don't know, there was that part where he's like sitting on the
that part was pretty good.
Table, and he starts shaking like that.
Yeah.
That's really unsettling.
That's been
then it pops out of his spine.
Yeah, that's been like the closest I could say comparatively, but everything else is pretty kind of just like, it burst out of my chest, I'm dead.
Yeah.
So and also, I don't know if you were gonna bring this up. Did you know about this whole scene, about the reaction to the scene?
No.
Oh, okay. So the chest burst scene was a planned scene, right? Like the crew knew what was going to happen,
Okay.
but they didn't know to the extent of what was going to happen. So when the chest burster first pops up out of his chest and you see a little bit of blood and everybody freaks out, they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that was supposed to happen." But then when it rips through his chest and the blood splatters on Lambert, that was all real reactions because they had no idea that that was going to happen.
Wow.
And when the blood landed on her, she slipped and fell, and that's why it cuts from her so quick because she slipped from reacting like, "Oh my god, like what just happened?" and everybody else freaks out because they had no idea that that was going to happen.
I gotta want to watch the scene again just to see it.
Yeah,
reaction.
it's so great because then when you know that and you watch, you can see like that, and that's why I say I think it's more visceral because those people are really reacting to what just happened.
Okay. Before it runs away, Ash tells Parker not to touch it.
Yeah, because he was gonna stab it with a pin.
Yeah.
And I love how it goes.
Yeah. They send Kane into space like a rocket.
Yeah. Yep.
Like a floating turd. He just
burial at sea.
Yeah.
You know?
So they pretty much wrap him up in cloth and then just like,
yep.
Anyone got any last words?
Nope.
Okay. Like no one says anything, and he just goes, and then just sends him off.
One down.
So I said Ash makes a vacuum cleaner able to track motion.
Yeah.
Then within a short range of 5 meters.
Yep. Molecular density. That's how it tracks things.
Whatever. It looked like a Ghostbusters thing.
Yeah, it's the molecular density in the air, and then later on Ripley is walking around with it, and she's like, "Molecular density, my ass." I fucking love it.
Ripley and the two mechanics find the alien. It was a cat.
Yeah. So Jonesy's running around the ship, and this is a good Jonesy jump scare.
This is that penguin joke. Did you get that when you watched this? That penguin joke from Alien vs Predator, where like you
remind me. Yeah, I don't.
So the main girl and this like the camera guy, the little photo guy, they hear something and the camera guy walks away and he looks over and then it goes, "Watch out, it'll get you," or something like that.
Yeah,
and it's a penguin.
Yeah, because it's like the one dude leaves and she's like, "I told you never to go anywhere alone," or whatever.
Yeah. No, it's right there.
Yeah.
It's a penguin. Yeah. So this was that joke.
Yep.
But it was a cat.
Yep.
And
then Brett, well, like they're trying to. They catch it in the net, but then Brett lets it go, and they all have kind of a laugh because they're like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, it's just the cat." And then Parker's like, "Dude, you got to go get it because we're gonna pick it up on the tracker again."
Yeah. So he goes and tries to find it, and the mechanic finds molted skin.
Yes.
This is the first time we actually get evidence that the xenomorphs actually shed their skin.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, mechanic gets rain on him?
Oh, it's yeah. I was always confused by the scene when I was a kid because I remember thinking that the alien was peeing on him.
Okay, that was not what went through my mind, but okay.
But it's from the cooling ducts.
So it's just leaking water?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's because it's like AC basically, and it's probably just condensation.
Okay.
That's my best guess.
It was weird.
Yeah.
Hour and 7 minutes in, we finally see the xenomorph as the cat watches it.
Did you see it hanging in the chains when he walked by?
I did not.
Oh, okay. So as he's walking into that room and he's just first going under the water, it shows a quick clip of the chain swinging around and the xenomorph's just up.
I was wondering why he was playing around with the
around.
damn chain so much. I was like, what's happening here?
Yeah, and then you see,
I felt like that scene went way longer than it needed to.
Yeah, it was a very
him playing with the chains and him getting pissed on was like way too long.
It was built trying to build like a lot of tension. And then he finds the cat, but then the cat freaks out and starts hissing. And then he's like, "What the hell are you hissing at? Like, whatever, calm down, cat." And then he turns around, and then you hear, it's like a weird music-y sound. Like,
oh, I was like, I don't know what alien says that sound.
No, that wasn't the alien. It was just the sound effects that they played while it was happening.
Sure. Yeah, an hour in, we finally an hour into the movie, we finally see a xenomorph. This is something that we have docked points off for. but we'll get to that.
I will say that this scene is kind of creepy though, because then they keep zooming in on Jonesy's face, and he's watching this dude get like murdered by the xenomorph.
Yeah, and he's just watching it all happen.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's kind of creepy. You just see the shadow on the cat's face.
So the girl and Ripley are having a conversation, and I just thought this was kind of funny, just how blunt Ripley is. The girl goes, "Can Brett be alive?" And Ripley goes, "No," and then walks away.
Yeah.
It's like, well, shit, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, because Parker's like, dude, this thing was big. Like, there's no way it could have taken him into the vents or whatever, because they didn't find a body. They only found, like, some blood dripping down from the vents. And he's like, it had to have been, like, at least the size of a man, if not bigger.
That ain't no man.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're looking at a map at this point when Ripley says that, they're looking at air duct ventilation and the maps and whatnot, and essentially they come to the conclusion that it's running around through the ventilation shaft. So they're going to try to force it into the airlock to shoot it out into space, and that's essentially the plan.
Yeah. So the captain tries to ask Mother for help, but says she does not compute, so she's a big old fat waste of ones and twos, or ones and O's, zeros and ones. Captain goes in the vent as volunteer with a flamethrower.
Yeah.
Because apparently that's all they have is a flamethrower, which is oddly weird.
And Parker had to rig it up out of like materials. Like he was like, and they didn't call them flamethrowers though. They called them. God,
why would they make a flamethrower? Why not just have a gun? They don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I have no idea.
It's weird.
Well, no, they do talk about it. That's right, because they're trying to figure out how to kill it, and they were saying something about how it can adjust to atmospheres and this and that. But then they're like, well, what about temperature? Does temperature affect it? And,
that's right.
And then Ash is like, well, most animals run away from fire. And so
that's true, yeah.
Yeah, and then Parker, he creates like incendiary devices or something of that nature. He doesn't say flamethrower specifically, which I thought was funny. I should have wrote what he said.
Yeah.
But he rigs up like 3 or 4 of them, and Dallas goes into the vent. Parker and Lambert cover.
They're like below where he entered in at.
Yeah, they're covering the opening, and then Ash and Ripley are at the airlock. Yeah. And then Dallas is running around through
and the hatches close in this metal spiral.
Yeah.
Which, if anyone played Alien Isolation, this is exactly the same venting system.
Yeah, I love the sound of them when they close. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all metally and like.
Yeah, like I said, the sound effects in this, I don't know who was in charge of the Foley work. They were top notch in this movie. They lost the signal, hand in slime. I was like, the reason why I wrote this down is because it was like very cliche. He lost communication, and then he puts his hand immediately in the like saliva snot that the xenomorph has. Did you not? I also forgot that in these movies that the xenomorphs always look like they literally just dunked their head into water, and so it's just like their whole mouths are just this glistening, like watery.
Yeah, they're
type
just always
thing.
dripping with goo.
Yeah,
it's like having a Saint Bernard. You know,
yeah,
like they're just drooling all the time.
I was right. Most stressful game of Snake, because as it's happening, you see this like beep beep. Beep,
yeah,
beep, beep. And he's
get
like,
out of there, Dallas! It's coming right behind you.
It's right there. Yeah, and it's just this like it has this little like snake like movement, and then it's just his dot, but it's on this grid that makes it look like it's a game of Snake.
Yeah, it's like old Tron graphics practically.
And I said, surprise! 1 hour and 15 minutes in, Xenomorph gets the captain.
Yep, Dallas got.
So
I love the way it puts out its
that
hand.
means less than 10 minutes, another person dies from the Xenomorph.
Yeah, and I love the way it holds out its arms like it wants to give him a hug, because Dallas
that's right. It goes.
Yeah, so the Xenomorph tricks Dallas, and I love
with a hug?
Like, because
I guess he's not that bad.
Because Dallas is on the wrong floor is what happened.
Yes.
Because he was on the 3rd floor and the Xenomorph was on the 4th floor, I guess. So Dallas ends up running down a ladder trying to escape, and the Xenomorph is down. He looks one way, there's nothing. He turns the other way, and then the Xenomorph just sticks his arms out like he wants to just give him a big old bear hug.
That's how I wrote it. I went, surprise!
Yeah, and it's just, oh my God, I laughed.
It was kind of funny.
Yeah, because the first time I watched this movie when I was younger, that did scare me. But, later on, viewing it as an older person, it's just like, oh my God, this is so like just corny and great. I love it.
There's a part where Ripley and Parker are talking at each other, and Parker is just wanting to like go out there and fight. And I thought this was some grade A delivery from Sigourney Weaver in this one. She's like, "Will you just listen to me, Parker? Shut up!"
Yeah.
And I said, it's just like a mom telling you, like, stop talking.
Yep.
Just stop. Listen to what I have to tell you.
And then it's great because he's just like, okay, go on and say what you're going to say.
Yeah, he's like, all right, shit, all right.
Yep. And then that, for me, solidifies Ripley. It's just like, I put Ripley is awesome, and then I put Ash is fucked.
Do you ever have those moments where, like, an actress eventually just starts sounding like your mom? I don't know what that says about my mom.
Yeah,
she yelled a lot. And
maybe,
not in a bad way, but she just, we're loud people in our household. That's why I'm loud. So.
And I get that too with like my dad and certain characters.
Yeah, where you'll see like, oh, okay, I can see like this. So Sigourney Weaver really just kind of sounded like, will you just shut up and listen to me? Like,
that brought back memories.
Yeah, I was like, all right, well, it's kind of like, God, I can't remember the actress's name, but the mom in Malcolm in the Middle.
Oh, right,
She reminds me of my mom too.
Okay.
Because I had a brother, so it's like, it really makes it sound like, will you just listen to your brother? Quit hitting your brother. So there's just moments like that.
That's funny.
I said Ripley is pissed and a bit saddened. Which I thought was some great acting from Sigourney Weaver, because you actually see both of these emotions come out of her, knowing that the captain is dead. You actually see her mad and sad at the same time, and not very many actors and actresses, any actor can do this, and she did it really well in this scene. So
I love her acting in this movie. She does a really great job. I didn't really like know Sigourney Weaver like back then too much, but as I've seen her in more stuff now, she's definitely one of
the first movie I ever saw her in was Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah.
And then after that was then I saw her in Galaxy Quest.
Dude, I love her in Galaxy Quest. Dude. And she's like a fine wine, dude. I think she's gotten hotter with age.
Oh, well, because in that movie she's blonde.
Maybe that's what it is. I don't know, because the same thing with Lucy Lawless.
Because she's not blonde.
She's
never blonde in any other movie except that movie.
Like when Lucy Lawless went blonde, man, she just. But then again, in Spartacus, she has like all sorts of different color hair, and she's still like fucking smoking.
I don't even know who that is.
Xena, Warrior Princess.
Oh.
Yeah, she's in a few movies. And she was in Battlestar Galactica and stuff. But yeah, she got older. She got older.
So Ripley goes to talk to Mother.
Yes.
But gets no answer because Mother's a stubborn bitch.
Yeah.
So. Ash says there is an explanation because he just shows up in there.
Oh, well, no, she does get some answers.
Yeah, but like nothing to like confirm what she needs to do.
Basically, all it says is that there's a new priority and that the crew is expendable. That's essentially what it's saying.
Because she's getting orders that somebody else has, which we find out Ash pops up in the middle of God knows wherever he came from, and he starts to. He like throws her for whatever reason, and he goes, "I can explain." It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
that's how you lead. Hey, I'm gonna throw you to the side of the room, but hey, listen to what I have to tell you.
He like scares her, and he's like, "There's a perfectly good explanation for this," or whatever, and she's freaking out. And I will say that like, I have a hard time finding Ash threatening sometimes, just because of how tiny he is compared to everybody else.
Because Sigourney Weaver is tall, isn't she?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's pretty tall, and most of the other characters are pretty tall. And Ash is like a shorter dude. Ian Holm, I think, is the actor's name, but he was in The Fifth Element. He was one of the priests, and he's been in a few other movies.
That's another good movie. I haven't seen that in a long time.
But it's really funny because the first time he throws Sigourney Weaver, he's wearing like this jumpsuit, and to me, it looks like a really big toddler throwing around an adult woman. Like, it just looks so silly to me. And then he throws her again into like on top of like a table or desk or something, and then you can see white driblets of like milky water running
she's
down.
Only 5'10",
running down her.
She's not that tall. Anyway, go ahead.
Like you can see like white milky stuff running down his face or whatever.
Yep.
And then he starts freaking out, and he's like jerking around like he's, and then he rolls up a magazine and he just tries to shove it down Ripley's throat.
I was like an hour and 22 minutes in, nude cutouts on the wall.
Oh yeah.
So if you guys want to see titties, Look on the wall. There you go.
Yep, I was gonna bring up the titties as well myself because it was a porno mag, is what he was trying to shove down
he
her
was.
throat.
I was like, oh man, you don't know where that magazine's been.
I'm curious whose it was. I have a feeling it was either Parker or Brett.
I would probably say. I'd probably say Parker, just because he's
yeah.
a little more dominant like that.
Yeah,
he wouldn't mind jerking off in the corner.
Yeah,
literally, because like 5 feet into the outside is where everyone eats.
Yeah,
so it's like, dude,
it's a little bunk or whatever.
The rest of the crew shows up,
yeah,
like right on time as she's getting gagged with a magazine.
Yeah,
and find Ash is rogue. Yeah. So before I wrote. My milk blood note was hour 21 minutes in, milk blood, Ash is a dirty traitor.
Yeah.
And then Ash gets pushed and spins out violently. Like when this happens, that's scary. Like how he's moving is really uneasy of looking at.
Yeah, because Parker knocks him in the back of the head.
And then the sound, like the combination of sounds he's making is like, whoa, hold on.
Yeah, he's like flipping out. Because I put Ash malfunctions after being hit by Parker.
Ash gets punched and spins out violently is what I wrote. Parker knocks his head off and finds out he's a robot.
Yeah, and then so this is where, and so obviously this is something that wouldn't necessarily be a surprise at this point. Like you wouldn't necessarily expect it in the movie per se, but having watched the previous two movies and knowing,
we automatically know.
Yeah, when they talk about the company, which we know is Whale and Yutani or whatever.
Also, never mentioned in this movie.
Yeah, they never say it specifically by name. You do see some logos on a couple of their shirts and stuff, but yeah, they just call it the company throughout the entire movie. So I don't know if they had a name at this point when they first came up with the movie.
Maybe not. But I wrote an hour and 24 minutes, a hard cut to indicate a change that he is no longer a prop on the table, but an actor.
I laughed at that.
So bad. It's so bad.
It's like clearly a cut to a
I was
person,
like, why not just change the scene? But they don't. They keep it in frame, and you can clearly see Sigourney Weaver's like a quarter of the way into frame, and then she's like a third of the way out of frame.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is happening here?
It was really strange.
It's so jarring of a cut. It's not great.
I do want to mention that this robot android or whatever is a lot more noodly than David.
Yeah, we look at it and it was kind of gross. He looked like spaghetti.
It's
like
disgusting.
He looked like spaghetti and like vanilla melted pudding.
Yeah,
it was very, and then he had beads inside him. I'm like, what the hell's happening?
All these little bubbles and weird noodle wires and stuff. I don't understand how they build cyborgs in the future. It makes no sense to me.
But Ash does mention a phrase that that we've heard. Several movies.
And then this is what I wanted to bring up.
Perfect organism.
Exactly. Yeah, because it's kind of cool that I guess essentially Ridley Scott was calling it back with Prometheus, but it's kind of nice to see it when you watch it in like chronological order, how Ash, who is a completely separate cyborg, 20 years into the future and made from probably a different model number, whatever, he comes to the same conclusion that David did.
Because I think all of them are connected into the same knowledge. Because Mother even thinks.
Yeah.
But because Waylon put that in their thing. But then as soon as they're done having the conversation, Ripley goes to smack the head off it. Yeah. And it does another hard cut to look at the dummy of hers hitting
the head. And the prop has this weird smile
Oh
on
my
its
God.
face.
It looks nothing like him.
Yep.
And then Parker just lights it up with a flamethrower. And then they walk out.
Yep.
Ripley goes to prepare the escape pod, tells everyone, hey, go get the other stuff so we'll have fuel or air support.
Yeah.
Like oxygen, and then we'll meet back up here in like 7 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
And
then like Ripley, when she's getting the shuttle ready, she hears Jonesy meow over the intercom. So she's like, Jonesy, oh shit, the cat. And so then she leaves to go get the cat. And then it cuts back to Parker and Lambert like getting supplies or whatever.
And they're making just absolutely every noise they possibly can.
Yeah, it's
clang, they're throwing shit,
cans and containers all over the place.
Yeah. So I also then goes to look for the cat, finds it, and then the xenomorph finds the girl because they're making so much damn noise.
Yeah.
Ripley hears this on the radio over this intercom thing because she's back in like where kind of close to where the escape pod is.
Mm-hmm.
And Parker goes to save her, but then gets thrown, and then the small mouth gets him.
Yeah, because Lambert wouldn't move. She was like frozen in place because she was so scared. And you can hear Parker yelling over the things like, "Lambert, get out of the way! Get out of the way!"
Yeah, because he's trying to light the thing up.
Exactly.
I would have at a point would have been like, all right, shit,
Exactly.
and then just go and just let that thing run.
At that point, there's nothing you can do because if she doesn't move, she's gonna die. If she tries to escape, it's probably gonna catch her. Like it got to the point where she pretty much ran out of options.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, I think for the betterment of all humankind, I'm gonna destroy this alien.
Yeah.
That's what Parker should have done, but instead he runs up to it and tries to tackle it.
Hey, you son of a bitch! I don't know if he says that, but it pretty much what happened.
Yep.
Parker goes to save her, but then gets thrown up by that. Girl dies too.
Yep.
Because eventually that happens. Ripley goes to see them for whatever reason, because you clearly can hear that they died.
Yeah.
Then sees them dead, and then runs back to below the ship.
Yeah. I love old so like between the 1950s and like the 1980s, maybe a little bit later, self-destruct modes in movies were these like pylons that you pull up out of this thing.
Yeah,
and
I was like,
turn
what the
them
hell?
And stuff. And it's always has something to do with nuclear reactions. You know?
They had to pull it up, turn it, close it down, pull it up, turn it, close it down.
And I love movies that have that because there's a few of those in some Godzilla movies. I've seen it in a few James Bond films.
Well, it happens in Back to the Future.
Back to the Future, yeah.
Because he turns it slowly, and then the plutonium shoots down and everything.
And so it's like that whole self-destruct idea to me is I love it. It's one of my favorite things.
We do get to hear Mother's voice an hour and 36 minutes in, which then to me got me thinking, why the hell were we not hearing Mother's voice this whole time if they put it in the movie anyway?
Yeah, I was kind of confused by that myself. Like I figured she would have talked more. But it's she basically just does the countdown and the self-destruct and all that.
Ripley sees the xenomorph from around the corner and then books it, leaving the cat.
Yeah, dude, I felt so bad for Jonesy because she just drops him, and then the xenomorph like walks up to him and is looking inside.
Yeah, he just looks at it and then he walks away.
And then he bats it off because
I don't think he does anything. I think he just looks at it and then and then it cuts back to Ripley.
I have the director's cut, so
I have the director's cut. I just didn't watch it.
So, like I don't have any other version, so I have to watch the director's cut. So there's a couple scenes in here that might not appear in yours that I might mention that you might not have seen.
Yeah, that was not in there.
Oh, okay, yeah, because when he looks at the cat, like he looks at it for a second, the cat looks up at him, and then he just bats it away.
Oh yeah, because when Ripley comes back, the case is still there, like untouched. So I think that's why that scene was cut.
Probably, yeah.
But Ripley tries to stop the detonation, but can't. I don't know why she's trying to stop this anyway.
Well, so I was trying to make sense of this as I was watching. And I think this is what happened. So she was running to the ship, the shuttle to get off, which the shuttle's called the Narcissus, I think, if I remember what I read.
The escape pod.
Well, it's like a little shuttle ship.
Yeah, but that thing.
Yeah,
just because. Yeah, I'm just.
But because like the shuttle's a different part than the ship that they use to land on the planet.
Yes.
So it's like a little tiny ship. It can only fit like 2 people in it. So she's running back to the ship. The xenomorph like pops up out of the ladder right when she's turning the corner, and then she hides real quick, and then it peeks. I love when it peeks its head around the corner because it's just kind of like, hey, like you can just see the tip of it. So then she runs to get away from it, leaving the cat. Then it looks at the cat or whatever, and then cuts back to her. And I think because she couldn't get to the shuttle, she's like, shit, I got to stop the detonation because I'm like stuck on the ship now. I can't get to the shuttle. So then by the time she makes it back, it's already too late. She can't stop it because she like stops it like right before the countdown. The countdown's 10 minutes. You've got 5 minutes to stop it. And she gets it like at basically 4:59 or whatever, and then it's too late. And so then she's like, Mother, goddamn you stupid bitch. And she's like throwing stuff
because she's yelling at Mother.
Yeah, and she's throwing stuff at the monitors and breaking shit. And she's like, I turned on the coolant, But the ship is still counting down. So then she's like, well, fuck, now I have to go back to the shuttle because I'm out of options. So it was a little confusing at first, but then I had like, as I was writing the notes and like reading what I was writing, I had to like kind of piece together to make sense of it. I want to say though that I think this is one of the because we did pass something. I just want to mention that there was a part, I don't know if you saw it because I think this is one of the scenes that got cut, or whatever. When she's walking to the shuttle the first time, and she like leaves Jonesy up on top of this ladder, and she walks down this ladder, and she actually finds a xenomorph like nesting ground.
That is not there.
Okay, yeah, and so you know how like they basically do that thing where they stick them to the walls or whatever.
Yeah.
So she finds Dallas and Brett stuck to the wall. Brett's I think Brett's knocked out, but Dallas is like barely conscious, and he just goes, kill me, and so she burns him, and then she walks right back up the ladder. So they probably just cut the scene for time reasons.
Yeah, that was not in the regular edition of the movie.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the only other scene that got cut. There might have been a few extended scenes or whatever, but nothing too different.
Yeah, so Ripley goes back to the pod and sees that the cat is still there. Then when she's running into the pod, she throws the box down,
I noticed
enters the pod, and then rolls it a couple more times.
Yeah.
I'm like, what an asshole! Like, he
Damn,
just,
that poor
just
kitty
kicked the cat over.
Yeah.
I just thought it was funny because clearly it's obviously an empty case. So
yeah.
Sigourney Weaver's just literally trying to get it into the doorway. And I said, how does Ripley see the explosion if she's flying away from the ship?
Yeah, it is kind of weird. I'm curious if maybe
it doesn't make any logical goddamn sense.
Well, the way it looked to me was so the ship's on, okay. So the little shuttle escape pod thing that she's in is underneath the ship. It looks like it detaches, floats down a little bit, and then it looked like
but it soared off forward,
and that it looked like the jets came from the front of the ship. So I think it just basically propelled itself enough to get away from the ship. And then the ship was going the opposite direction. So I think she was looking out of the front of the ship.
But the ship is going
moving
forward,
moving backward.
Okay. Well, either to me, it looked like it wasn't doing that right.
But to your point, later on when you see the ship, it looks like it's floating the other direction. So it's kind of maybe it's a continuity error. I don't know. But the way it looked to me was it jetted from the front of the ship, and she was flying backwards, and then later on she like turned it around or something. I don't know exactly, but it was kind of, I don't know, it was kind of strange.
Okay.
As she was flying away from it, she said, "I got you, you son of a bitch."
Yeah, an hour and 44 minutes in, we get that line. Ripley puts the cat to sleep in the sleep pod.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ripley strips at an hour and 46 minutes in.
Yeah, dude, you can totally see how much bush she's got.
Okay. I wasn't going to go that far into it, but sure, we'll go into that, I guess.
It was the 70s after all.
It was, to me, I was like, man, it's almost like they were like, here's a pair of underwear, and it's like 5 sizes smaller than what she actually wears. Because you
see a little bit of butt. You see a little bit of butt crack, and they're like really tiny.
Yeah. Goes to power something. Oh yeah, so she goes to power something on. Turns out Mr. Xenomorph catches the ride.
Yeah. And
I'm like, how the hell?
See, and I think this. So when she went to go back to shut off the self-destruct, I think.
Oh yeah, it got on the ship.
Yeah, and I think I always thought it was funny because I think the Xenomorph knew what she was gonna do, and so he was like, "Well, fuck, I'll just hide in the ship real quick." And then he hid, and then when she got on the ship, like. But it was weird because he was in some kind of weird stasis.
No, he was laying sideways. I'm like, how the hell did he get sideways?
Yeah, he was like tucked in this weird little like alcove and some pipes and stuff. But when she sees him, he just sticks his arm out, and then he like brings it back in and doesn't attack her.
Yeah,
so that's why I was thinking he was in some kind of weird stasis.
So Ripley puts it on a space. She runs into a closet and starts putting on a spacesuit. And I said, Ripley is me anytime I'm trying to kill a bug. Because she's like slowly, like not looking at anything else. She's like slowly approaching, putting stuff on, like trying to grab
super
things.
Heavy, but really quiet.
Yeah, it just really, I was like, oh man, that's totally.
Yeah, it's basically when you're watching a spider on the wall and
you're like, don't move,
don't want it to get away.
Don't move, and you're like reaching around to grab something to hit it with it. And then Ripley hits it with steam, and it does
Oh.
not like that.
I do want to mention that while she's getting dressed, it's cutting back to the alien as he's like this scene to me is very sexualized because
Really?
because H.R. Giger was kind of like a weird dude and he designed the alien after some of his artwork and stuff, but the alien like sticks its claw and it's like rubbing it across the panel, and then it like tucks its arm in and it like rubs its chest, and then its tongue, its like second mouth tongue like extends outward.
Yeah,
and goes,
I noticed that too. Yeah,
then it
yeah.
goes
I was
back
like,
in.
what is
It's
happening here?
It's like, dude, is this thing trying to seduce Ripley? Like,
yeah,
what is happening?
it was very weird.
Yeah.
And so she walks back out, and then she sits down in the chair.
Yeah, and she's singing a song to herself. I think something about a lucky star
remember.
or something.
And then she hits the button, and then it opens the airlock.
Yeah.
And I said, then hits the open door button, sends his ass outside, but he holds on, and then she shoots it with a harpoon.
Yeah.
And then blasts it with the engines.
Did you notice that? Okay, so she shoots it with the harpoon. It flies outward, and the harpoon gun goes with it, right?
Yeah.
The door shuts, but then she turns and hits the button.
Oh,
so
I didn't notice that.
Oh, it's totally mistimed. I was like, oh, that's weird. Yeah, they like cut that scene in the wrong order.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was So then the harpoon gun is like stuck in the door, so he's still hanging like stuck on the cable, and then he kind of like floats back to the engine, and then she basically just fucking hits the button and blasts him into space.
Ripley sends her last transmission. She gets in her sleep pod.
Yep.
The face of Ripley fades to space and ends. And then this is what we had just mentioned it a little while ago, but I said no word of Waylon.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the end of the movie.
See, okay, and now notice how it only took us a little over an hour to talk about this movie.
Yeah, and the movie's 2 hours long or something like that.
Exactly. It's like an hour and 50 minutes or something.
God.
But this is the funniest part because you talk about how slow it is. To me, this movie breezes by.
I was also I was very sleepy.
Oh,
so
okay.
as I'm watching this, I'm like, oh my god, just move on.
There
I'm
are
watching this movie at 8:00 too. I don't know why I was so tired, but as I was watching, I'm like, God, this thing is happening over.
There are a couple parts that do drag on a little bit. It's mostly just like the dialogue scenes where they're talking like a lot of the space stuff, the sciencey stuff, things like that. But when the alien's on screen, dude, I'm all attached to it. You know, like I have no problem paying attention to it. But yeah, to me, the 2 hours just flew right by. I didn't even realize it was a 2 hour long movie, which is really, yeah. I mean, it is a slow start, but I think, you know, that latter half of the movie, it's pretty good. Like as far as like the pacing goes.
It's an hour and 56 minutes.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. The director. Yeah. I think is that the director's cut?
I don't know. I'm just looking on the IMDb thing. Speaking of IMDb, it is time to head over to IMDb in our IMDb corner, and we're gonna look up some cool stuff to learn. Do you want to trade off again, or do you want to just sit back and relax? Up to you. If you liked the last episode,
I don't remember what I read really.
We're just gonna random it again.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to do that again, or do you want to?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Do you want to start or do you want me to go?
You can go first, and I'll just do the next one.
Okay, so we're heading into trivia. So, let's hear.
Where the hell's
We're
trivia?
going to go.
Oh, there it is.
So, by total.
By total votes.
Yep. All right. We're going to give you how many trivia on this one?
I'd probably say 5.
5 it is.
Yeah, they're all pretty beefy.
Okay, number 1, the blue laser lights that were used in the aliens' ship egg chamber were borrowed from The Who. The band was testing out the lasers for their stage show in the soundstage next door.
Oh, wow.
What the hell?
Talk about saving a buck, huh?
Number 2, to get Jones the cat to react fearfully in the descending alien, a German Shepherd was placed in front of him with a screen between the two, so the cat wouldn't see it at first. The screen was then suddenly removed to make Jones stop advancing and start hissing.
That's clever. So basically they used the dog in place of the alien in real life to make Jones react to the alien as it was killing the dude.
There you go.
That's pretty cool.
Number 3, according to Yaphet Kotto, Ridley Scott told him to annoy Sigourney Weaver off camera so that there was there would be tension between their characters. Kodo regrets this because he really liked Weaver.
That's funny. I think that's the dude who played Parker.
Can you see
if it is?
Yeah. I'll go to the fourth one here. Number 4, shredded condoms were used to create tendons of the beast's ferocious jaws. Weird.
Wait, I'm sorry. What was it? I missed.
Shredded condoms were used to create tendons of the beast's ferocious jaws.
Interesting.
Number 5 and last one, the chest burster scene was filmed in one take with 4 cameras.
Yep, and that's all real reaction, man. I don't know if that's on here anywhere.
Whoa! Harrison Ford turned down the role of Captain Dallas. That's interesting.
Well, bonus.
That would have been bonus trivia. All right, now we move on to the next one, which is Loot Box. So you get to choose what you want to do here. You can do quotes, goofs, crazy credits, or soundtracks.
Let's do quotes.
Go ahead.
Oh, here, hold on. I gotta go back.
And then we're gonna sort through total votes. I'm assuming.
Quotes. Sure. That sounds.
Oh boy, that first one.
Okay. So, wow. Should I read that one?
It's up to you. You're the one hosting this one. We're going to give you 3 quotes from the movie.
Yeah, that's a long one. I don't want to read that first one. Okay, so let's read. Okay, let's read the third. Let's start with the third one.
Starting with the third one.
Oh my God, that one's super long too.
It's not really that long when you think about it. It's just broken out. It's up to you.
Man, these are all like really long.
We got to go with something.
Okay, here, hold on.
There's just 3 of them. There's just 3 of them.
I'm going to go.
To be perfectly honest, we're like an hour behind when we normally are at this point from the last 2 movies. So yeah, I think we're good on time. So if you want to do a long one, it's okay.
Okay.
But it's up to you.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's do the refine. Let's change that to the other one.
To interesting?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we can do that because the first 2 are pretty short, and then we'll skip to number 4.
Okay.
Okay, so the first one is Ripley. Micro changes in air density, my ass.
Yeah,
that was one.
You did mention that
yes.
earlier. Number 2.
So this one is the last lines of the movie. So final report of the commercial starship Nostromo, 3rd officer reporting. The other members of the crew, Kane, Lambert, Parker, Brett, Ash, and Captain Dallas, are dead. Cargo and ship destroyed. I should reach the frontier in about 6 weeks. With a little luck, the network will pick me up. This is Ripley, last survivor of the Nostromo, signing off. To Jonesy the cat. Come on, cat.
And number 3.
Okay, so I'm gonna skip.
This is that long one.
Well, I'm skipping that one. Yeah, I'm gonna go to the next one because it's a little bit shorter. But Ripley has tried to disengage the Nostromo self-destruct sequence, and then Mother, I turned the cooling unit back on.
The ship was automatically destruct in T-5 minutes.
You bitch!
Smashes the computer.
Yeah, I love
with
that.
With flamethrower, it actually says.
Oh, it does say. Oh, well, yeah, I guess on here, yeah.
Alrighty. The next one, we're going to be doing taglines. Taglines, my favorite part of the whole entire show. Here we go.
These are good ones.
This was definitely the best one because obviously it has one of the best taglines in all of cinema. It is number 1, in space. No one can hear you scream.
Yeah, and that's like an iconic tagline.
Oh yeah, they made it that way.
Yeah,
and that's what Ridley Scott wanted. He wanted that tagline with nothing else to talk about the movie because he wanted everyone to just watch the movie.
Yeah, like it blows my mind how synonymous that's become, with something like this.
Number 2, the scariest movie ever made. Experience it only on the big screen. That was the USA 2003 re-release. Number 3, sometimes the scariest things come from within. Get it? Because it explodes out of yourself.
Yeah.
Number 4, it's Alien, the 8th passenger.
Oh my God.
Because there were 7 passengers on the ship.
That one's cheesy.
That one's cheesy, but it's also a deep cut because no one would actually know that unless they really paid attention to the movie. Number 4, wait, is that number 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 5, the scariest movie ever made just got scarier. That was the UK 2003 re-release. Number 6, A Word of Warning. And that's it. Number 7, In Space, No One Can Hear You Scream. This Halloween in theaters, everyone will hear you scream. That was the re-release of Alien. Alrighty. And now we head on to release date. So when did this movie come out here, Josh?
What is this? This is like the
Just
box
in the
office
details,
stuff or whatever.
In the details.
Oh, box office. Okay.
Above that.
No, but I was looking at this.
Oh, yeah.
So it came out June 22nd, 1979.
Don't sound too excited about that.
Oh, sorry. I was just seeing what countries in the United Kingdom and the United States.
Yep.
Oh,
Man,
wait, no, never mind.
This got very far.
Well, there are a lot more countries. I didn't realize I pressed the wrong thing, but there's a lot more countries that got released in all over the world.
Yeah.
But it looks like the United States, Soviet Union, and Japan were the first. The Soviet Union. Okay, so the United States had a limited release on May 25th of 1979, but the Soviet Union got the official release movie, not limited. On May 28th, 1979.
Which is funny that it is actually called the Soviet Union in this part.
Yeah,
because they're not called that anymore.
Yeah, this is before the fall of the Berlin Wall and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and then actually I scrolled down a little bit, and the country that got it the latest was South Korea, October 1st, 1987.
Wow.
Almost 10 years.
That's crazy.
Since the movie actually came out.
Man, that is kind of weird to think.
Yeah. Box office. Let's see how much this bad boy made. $11 million was estimated for this film on opening weekend in the United States. It grossed $1,287,560, and then the gross worldwide was $203,630,630. That's quite a return there. That is quite a return. So you could say they got their money back. Now we head on to tech specs. Go ahead, Josh. Take it away.
All right. So the runtime is. That's weird.
The director's cut is actually shorter.
Huh.
So there you go.
So yeah, the regular runtime is 1 hour and 56, and
so
the
I might have
cut
saw stuff that you didn't see.
Is 1 hour and 55 minutes. Yeah, it's possible. That's weird. Sound mix 70 millimeter 6-track, 70 millimeter prints, Dolby stereo.
So you have Dolby. This movie's gonna be good for you.
Yes. Aspect ratios 220 by 1 on the 70 millimeters and 2.39 by 1. I guess that's how you say that, right?
I don't really know how to do that because that's the aspect ratio.
I like saying stuff like this though, where the
camera,
Panavision PSR R200, you know,
and used with
Panavision C series lenses, and then we had the Panavision Panaflex Panavision C series lenses. And then let's see here, 35 millimeter negative format, Eastman 100T 5247. I don't know what that means.
Just the type of film.
Printed film format, 35 millimeter, 70 millimeter blow up, and 8 millimeter Super 8.
Wow, they shot this thing in Super 8.
That's pretty good. So that means it's like a really big picture,
well,
right?
they don't even use
what
Super 8.
What does that mean?
Super 8 is the 8 millimeter film, so it's usually a smaller film.
Okay.
Yeah, because usually being film, it's usually shot in 35 millimeter.
Yeah, that's like the standard reel.
Yeah, so 8 millimeter was usually in the 70s, like home movies were shot on 8 millimeter.
Oh, that's right. Because
that's why Super 8 was made, where J.J. Abrams.
And there's the whole snuff film called 8 millimeter.
Okay.
With Nicolas Cage. You've never
seen
that?
All right, anyway, moving on. We're on to our ranking. By the way, I did say I was going to say who this is directed by. Obviously, it's Ridley Scott. The director is Ridley Scott. So, anyway, so let's head into our ranking. Who wants to go first?
I think you should go first.
Okie dokie.
Because it sounds like you have a little bit more opinions on the movie than I do.
I do have a little bit more opinions on the movie. So I want to go on clarification here. We started rating these movies based on what IMDb had, because that's what we're going based on, so we can keep track of our stuff.
Like the numerical system.
The numerical
it's
system.
Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
But the Primal Target rating system uses decimals. This movie, to me, I think would have gotten a different review if we had decimals. I did not want to give it a 7 because I didn't think it was in the same contention as Predators. I think it was a little bit better than Predators, which is sitting at our number 2 spot. But I also didn't think it was as good as Predator.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, I gave it an 8 because I think cinematically the movie is artistically shot well. And it for what it is, if you just watched it by itself, it's definitely not a fun movie like how we said that Predators is and Predator is, and why we gave those so high reviewed because we enjoyed those films. This one is obviously not a sit down with the family and watch the film. I mean, those other two movies aren't either, but not sitting down with your friends to enjoy the film. This is more of you're gonna watch it because you want to watch something that maybe can jump scare you a couple times. It does have a solid storyline, so it does definitely deserve a pretty good review on it because unlike some of the movies that we watch with those Predator movies, they don't have a goddamn storyline.
Yeah.
I do think this is definitely, when I looked back at our stuff, it's more than worthy. It's definitely a marvelous movie, so I gave it an 8 just because it is very, very slow. But you have to take it for what the movie was shot for and when it was shot and not think about Prometheus and Alien Covenant. If you get those out of the situation, this movie does really well. If you include those, I think this movie definitely sits a lot lower, possibly at a 7, maybe a 6. But the thing is like the movie itself is a lot better when you just look at it as this is Alien. This is the movie that started it all for this franchise, for the Xenomorphs. And it does it really well.
Yeah.
Because it's just scary. It's just supposed to be a spooky movie.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yep.
So I gave it an 8.
Okay. Yeah, I can agree with pretty much every sentiment that you just said. It starts out slow, but when you take it in context of when the movie came out, it being the first of its kind or whatever, it definitely would hit different notes at that point in time as opposed to now after seeing all the movies that we've seen so far up to this point, or that have come after the initial release of Alien, and then if you take Prometheus and Covenant in mind and stuff, it does change the viewing of the film a little bit because you kind of know, like, oh, I already know about this thing or whatever. It was kind of like how you were making the comparisons for Star Wars. If you ever are to see those movies for the first time, you start with Episode 4. Like, because Episode 4 originally wasn't Episode 4, it was just Star Wars. So it's kind of the same concept here, where Alien didn't initially he didn't have an idea for a sequel. He didn't have a backstory. He kind of had an idea. He put it together, and this is what you got. And it's, as a standalone movie, it's masterful. It's a great movie. Art, like you said, art direction, the suspense, the tension, all that kind of stuff is really good. But then, if you look at it in the larger context of things, it's a slower movie comparatively to a lot of the other movies. And, and it's definitely dated. You can tell the technology's way, way back when. But like I said earlier, it has a little bit of charm in that manner, or in that respect, because it's kind of the same with the old Star Wars movies, again, for lack of a better comparison, how the Millennium Falcon in Episode 4 is like a rusty old piece of shit, whereas you look at it in like the newer movies, it's like, oh, okay, it's all clean and like, even though it looks old, it doesn't seem old, but long story short, essentially I felt the same way about the movie. It's definitely not better than Predator. It is a great movie, don't get me wrong. I love this movie to death, and I have tons of nostalgia for it, but Predator, in my eyes, is still better, just because I always have fun with that movie. Alien, like you said, is not a feel-good movie. It's kind of a movie that you want to watch to maybe feel the tension or the scare or whatever. So I agree with you, and I gave it an 8.
There you go. So Alien gets a solid 8 and takes the second place spot now.
Yep.
As our MovieKombat season 1 starts to move on into the closing moments of it.
Yeah. So we have 10, 11, 12 left. So after 9 movies, Predator is still on top.
Yeah. I honestly thought that this was the closest thing that was going to knock it down. I haven't seen these other movies, so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I'm so excited for the next one. I'm not going to lie.
For Alien 2, huh?
Yeah, Aliens.
Aliens. So as of right now, let me write this down if you can kind of banter here. So
yeah. Well, actually, I can I briefly talk about Alien Isolation, because it does relate to this, sort of.
The hit Sega video game.
Yeah, and
is it made by Sega?
I think so.
I know that the Colonial Marines was a Sega game.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Did you ever play that?
Yeah, I remember.
Where
that,
it was Alien versus Predator. Or no, not Colonial. That was a game too. But there was an Alien versus Predator video game where you can play as the alien, the Predator, or the
Yeah.
Marines, and it came out on Xbox 360. And there were 3 different storylines. Just so you guys know, the humans story mode is shit.
Yeah.
It sucks. It's not worth playing.
That was like the modernized version of it because they did have some old school ones.
There is one, isn't there on NES?
I think it was just PC. I'm not sure if there was one on NES, but I know they had some on like PC way back in like the 90s too. It was similar concept. Um, but so Alien Isolation is is a video game. It's not a movie, but I think I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's part of the canon. And I only say that.
Sorry, SNES. It was on the SNES.
Oh, okay, okay. So I think it's part of the canon, but I'm not 100% sure. Because I want to say that they got like essentially like the blessing from Ridley Scott or whatever, or like they talked to somebody who had inside knowledge of the alien universe. I don't know exactly, but they did get Weaver to do the voiceover or whatever, unless they took it from the movie. I don't think they did, but I'm sure that they in one way or another got the real voice of Sigourney Weaver to do the closing lines of this movie because it does happen in the game, the voice recording or whatever. But the game is about Ripley's daughter. I forget what her name is, Amanda or something, or Helen or something like that. Uh, um, but either way, Ripley's daughter is I think she's just a kid. She's like a little kid when Ripley goes off to do the mining on the Nostromo, and on her way back, Ripley's daughter is, she has no idea what happened to her mother because her mother's off in space, and this takes place a few years later. I don't want to say the exact dates because I don't want to give away too much from the next movie, also because it does have a little bit of spoilery connotations. But either way, her daughter's a little bit older, and her daughter's like basically going out to look for her mother, like because her mother's basically floating out on the frontier waiting for somebody to catch her. And she goes into some space station or whatever, and some stuff happens, and some xenomorphs get involved, and I just want to say that much. I don't really want to give away too much of the plot.
If you want to watch some of the gameplay, it's actually here on the channel. Christian and I did it on the first year of Primal Target. That was one of the first games that we played. We never finished it, but if you want to see some gameplay, it is actually here on the channel. So there you go.
Oh, good deal. Yeah, and so the cinematic scenes in it, I thought were really cool because we do learn some things about the xenomorphs. That when they're in actual space, they go into like a hyperspace sleep kind of thing where they don't need to breathe and they don't need to eat. They're basically just frozen in place. And then there's also some stuff to do with like some androids and things. But we learn a little bit about the company and like essentially Will and Yutani. We learn about a little bit about Ripley's daughter and stuff. And I just thought it was a really interesting story because I watched the cinematic scenes online and stuff, and they kind of cut it together into like a movie or whatever.
I think IGN cut that.
Yeah, and so that I thought that was pretty cool, like how they cut it together, and you kind of got some of the story a little bit, as far as like a little bit more information about the xenomorphs and about Ripley's daughter. Yeah, I did have a point to this, but now I can't remember what it was.
You were just talking. You were wanting to talk about Alien Isolation.
Yeah, I just thought it was really cool. It was a pretty good story, and I just like the whole like concept of it, how it kind of picked up a little bit after the first movie ends. And it just has some good backstory elements and stuff, and you kind of get you get a little bit of tidbits from the first movie and from Isolation in the next movie because they do talk about some things that happen in Isolation, I guess, in a manner of speaking, without spoiling it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as it rounds out, number 1 is Predator, sitting at an 8.5. Number 2, Alien, our brand new addition to the MovieKombat leaderboards. And then at number 3, I got to remember here. Yep, at number 3 is Predators, sitting in with a 7. Number 4 is Predator 2, sitting in at a 6.5. I didn't know we rated that so high with 6.5. I mean, it's not high, but it's above a 5, so it's what it is. And then at Tied at 6th place is Prometheus and Alien Covenant, sitting in at 6. And then 6th place. So at 7th place is AVP. At 8th place is The Predator. And rounding out the bottom is AVPR with a 3.5. I know I didn't say the other one scores, but I guess you get what's going on. It's between. You get a 3.5. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, you get the update every episode, so I'm sure by this point, if you don't know the scores more or less with us, then you just haven't been paying attention.
Yeah, but it's okay. You could just go back and rewatch all those so that you get caught up, so you know what's going down. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for listening. If you guys want to listen to this on audio versions, or if you're already listening to this and you want to get your friends to listen to this, you can tell them that you can go to iTunes and just search Primal Target. You can listen to MovieKombat, as well as PT3600, because there's 2 seasons of that going right now. Bitcade, our longest reigning podcast about video games, you can listen to that all in one feed, so you don't got to go and subscribe to all these other different places. And if your Android people are like, I don't got an iPhone, I don't have a podcast, you can say, boy, download Podbean so you can listen to it, because we're over there too. And then if you're saying I'm more of a YouTube guy and I like having my audio feed videofied, then go over to YouTube and go subscribe over there on YouTube. Links in the description below for all of the social media. You can go follow Josh at
Boney Wrote, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the stuff.
And you can follow me at Ryan A. Moore on all social media as well. That's going to be... Oh, you got one more thing?
Well, we didn't tell them what movie we're watching, did we?
Oh, I guess not. Go ahead.
We're going to be watching Aliens, which is obviously the sequel to Alien, directed by James Cameron, this one is.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so I'm quite excited for the next one.
Oh, my God. James Cameron. James freaking Cameron.
We all do know how he makes great movies.
Yeah, we do. We'll see you guys in the next episode, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.
Laters.